Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Tuesday evening. I hope you all are doing well. It is the game review. Aston Villa 4, Everton 0. Sean Dyche's Everton team losing their second consecutive game on the bounce. 2 Premier League games this season, 2 defeats and 0 goals. I believe this is only the 3rd time in Everton's history that they have gone the opening 2 games of a season, whether it be a Premier League season or a First Division season, without scoring a single goal. A pretty dreadful 90 minutes of football on Saturday afternoon, to say the least. And we all sat here this time last week and we all spoke about what was a good performance against Fulham and a performance in which Everton deserved much more out of, and how we had 19 shots at goal and we were unlucky to not get anything from the game, and on another week we'd have won that game. And what a polar opposite conversation that we're having a week later. Everton deserved absolutely nothing from Sunday's game. It was, as I've just mentioned, a truly terrible 90 minutes of football. Possibly the worst under Sean Dyche, certainly one of the worst under Sean Dyche, and certainly one of the worst I've witnessed in recent years as an Everton fan as well. And even, the biggest Sean Dyche supporter and the most, biggest advocate of Sean Dyche being the Everton manager, not even them could sit there and take any positives from that on Sunday. It was dreadful, and we knew it was going to be a tough game. We knew ultimately Aston Villa had a good side. They obviously had suffered a defeat in the previous week to Newcastle, quite a heavy defeat, but we knew that they were a good side. Obviously finished the season really strong last season. Obviously Unai Emery in charge, finished in a European position, had a really good home record towards the end of last season as well, and there was absolutely no doubt going into this one that it was going to be a tough game. There was absolutely no doubt going into this one that it was going to take a really good performance for Everton to get anything out of this one. However, I didn't quite think we would capitulate like we did. And I don't know why I didn't see that coming, because it's happened numerous times before, especially away from home. I really struggle to believe that Everton will be anything other than just absolutely abhorrent away from home anymore. It seems like we are this every single season where, at Goodison Park, we'll win games of football and we'll put in some good performances and, we might win a game that you don't expect us to win, but away from home, 9 times out of 10, we're going to get, the floor wiped. We're going to have the floor wiped with us pretty comfortably, and that's what it's been for the last few seasons. 2 away wins last season, 2 away wins the season before, and judging on Sunday's performance, we won't see many more, if 2 away wins at all this season. It was shocking. It was shocking by the manager. It was shocking by the players. It was shocking by everybody involved at the football club, really, and this was something that we've known could come for a long time. I sat here on the Instant Match Reaction on Sunday afternoon and spoke about how Everton lost the game the week before to Fulham, having 19 shots at goal. 19 shots at goal we had against Fulham, and we still lost that game. Why did we lose that game? Because we didn't have a goal scorer to put any of those shots into the back of the net. Our only forward in that game was Neil Maupay, and we've already surmised that he isn't good enough. And whilst we had Dominic Calvert-Lewin returning for this one, we all knew deep down that the reliability of Dominic Calvert-Lewin is pretty much non-existent. And okay, maybe no one could have foreseen him going off after 25 minutes with a freak head injury or face injury. However, it would have still been very unlikely that he would have completed 90 minutes had he have not received that injury on Sunday. So we knew going into this game that we needed a centre forward. In fact, we've known going into this season that we've needed a centre-forward. In fact, we've known for over 2 years that we've needed a centre-forward, and still the club have sat on their hands. Still, the director of football and the recruitment team have sat on their hands, not being proactive and not gone and got one in. And I'm not sitting here and saying that had we have had Che Adams in or, another centre-forward on Sunday, it would have been a different result. But what I'm saying is we've known what the problem with this football club has been for a long time, and nothing seems to be getting done about it. There seems to be no movement. There seems to be no real sort of, emphasis on getting that player over the line, that player that we are so desperate to bring in. Instead, we hear the same excuse every week from the manager. Well, Yusuf Chamiti, he's not quite ready yet. He's a slow burner. I'm sorry, but I said this on Sunday. That is the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in my life. A slow burner. Why have we spent £13 million on him then? If he's not ready to be involved straight away, and are we going to hear this now for the next 2, 3, 4 months? Oh, he's a slow burner. He might make the bench in January. He might come on for he might come on for a couple of substitute appearances this season. Why have we spent that money on him then? Knowing full well we are in desperate need of a centre forward. Why not go out and buy a centre-forward that isn't a slow burner, that is going to be available on day one to start a Premier League game, and then go and bring in a Yusuf Chamiti towards the back end of the transfer window when you've got that little bit of extra cash and there's no reliance on him? It's just one of the thousands of examples as to why this football club are in the position that they are in, because of the absolutely disgraceful mismanagement from the top to the bottom of it. And Sunday, unfortunately, was absolutely no surprise. And whilst we can sit here and say, oh, it's only, the second game into the season, and Aston Villa are a good team, and Aston Villa are great at home, etc., etc., I understand all of that. And this, for me, is why it was so important that Everton beat Fulham at the weekend. And this for me was why I couldn't stand when people were saying, oh, well, we had 19 shots at goal and it's unlucky and on another day we win that, and why are you so upset because we played well? I'm so upset because we had a home game in which we dominated and had 19 shots at goal and still lost, knowing full well, and we all knew full well, that this game on Sunday against Aston Villa was more than likely going to end in defeat. Maybe we didn't quite think it would end the way it did in terms of being absolutely, as I said, destroyed. But we all knew it would be extremely difficult to get anything out of this game. And still, we failed to win the very winnable home game against Fulham. And if we fail to win the very winnable home game against Wolves next Saturday, there will be pressure on the manager. Whether you like it or not, there will be pressure on the manager because some of the decisions that he's making don't make any sense and the results are not what they should be. I seen a tweet before, and listen, I said this on Saturday, I'm not Sean Dyche out at this current moment in time. I don't think Sean Dyche should be sacked, and I don't think Sean Dyche will be sacked at this moment in time. What I said last weekend, on Sunday, after the game, was if he was to be sacked, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. And to be perfectly fair to me, I think I said that in an instant match reaction in April time when Michael Keane started his 9th game on the bounce and Everton had conceded about 456 goals in the previous 8 that he played in. I think I said in that instant match reaction, I wouldn't care if Sean Dyche was moved on, because his decision making is baffling and he is making decisions based on personal relationships as opposed to based on what is best for the team. He quickly changed that for the most important 4 games of the season. He brought Yerry Mina back and Everton picked up the points they needed to pick up and they stayed in the Premier League. Fast forward a couple of months, Michael Keane has done absolutely nothing to suggest that he's good enough to be back in this starting 11, and yet he plays week in, week out. Riddle me that. But Sean Dyche needs to be really, really careful, because if Everton do lose next weekend against Wolverhampton Wanderers, which is very possible, Wolves played really well against Manchester United on the opening day. They lost that game. They were a little bit unlucky. Okay, they were beaten quite heavily by Brighton at the weekend. Again, something that, any team can fall for, because Brighton are a really good side. But we are without the obvious that we know. No Dwight McNeil, no Jack Harrison. It looks now like we'll have no Alex Iwobi, who pulled up with a hamstring problem, even though we've heard nothing about that since. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, very unlikely to play with a fractured cheekbone. Again, maybe you can put the old Zorro mask on, but it'll probably be the week after or a couple of weeks after, as opposed to this Saturday. That'll probably be too early for him. This game is massive. If we lose this one, then that's 3 defeats on the bounce. 2 of them being home games against teams that Everton should be targeting to beat at Goodison Park, especially if we're wanting to be in a position come April, May, where we're not having to look over our shoulder like we have been the last 2 seasons. So, like I said, that for me is why the performance against Fulham was so disappointing and so frustrating, is because we knew how difficult Villa was going to be, and yet we still sat on our hands after the Fulham performance and after the Fulham result and thought, no, do you know what? We don't need to go out and sign a striker this week. We don't need to go out and be proactive in the transfer window. We'll just sit here on our hands and just act like everything's fine. Fast forward a week later and we lose 4-0 to Aston Villa, who, are a very good team. We're a side in Europe and, it was away from home, etc., etc. But the way in which we lost once again was pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. We seem, I nearly said then we're back in this thing, but I don't think we ever left this mentality of the second we go 1-0 down, the game is lost. And I said this, I remember doing a video on this about a year or so ago, and it was about the sort of conceding a goal mentality that this football club has, and it seemed to have left for a little bit or wasn't happening as much over the last sort of 12 months or so. But we're starting to see it more and more again now. Is the second Everton go 1-0 down, we lose the game. Because the second Everton go 1-0 down, we very soon after go 2-0 down. Because heads drop, the plan goes out the window, players' confidence drops, players don't really know where they are or need to be, and we go 2-0 down very quickly. And the minute we go 2-0 down, it's game over because we don't score goals. So, coming back by scoring 1 goal is a hard enough task for Everton at the moment, let alone getting 2 goals. So, if that is the case, and the manager knows that we've got no goal scorers in this team, then he has to do one of, if not both, of 2 things. One of them is go out and buy a goal scorer in the transfer window, preferably in the 6 weeks of the transfer window leading up to the Premier League season. Not a 19-year-old that you are going to state is a slow burner for the next 6 weeks and ain't going to play. And B, make the team resilient and hard to beat and defensively astute and defensively confident and strong and difficult to break through, so that you are much less at risk of conceding a goal. And if you do concede a goal, you're much less at risk of conceding 2, because you've got leaders in there, you've got strong players in there that can pick themselves up, that know how to that know how to sort of not allow their heads to be dropped after a goal goes in. But the manager does neither of that. Now, okay, the manager mightn't be, responsible for the recruitment, and that's fair enough, and that ultimately falls on Kevin Thelwell and the recruitment team's door. And I think this whole facade over Kevin Thelwell being unbelievable and all the tweets of what's Kevin Thelwell cooking, I think it's a load of bollocks, to be honest. Because whilst we might have brought in Jack Harrison, whilst we might have brought in, Ashley Young, or we're looking at Nonso, etc., the main issue still remains. We haven't got a striker that is good enough and experienced enough to be deemed able to come in and start week in, week out when Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't available. So, I'm sorry, but, the jury is still out on Kevin Thelwell for me. It is what it is. But the defensive part of it is on the manager. Now, yes, Everton haven't got options galore at centre-back. We lost 2 centre-backs in the summer that we didn't replace. But what we have got is a lad there who's just played a full season, for PSV, played in a European competition, won a trophy, and was absolutely raved about by everybody at PSG. played for England in the summer in their championship winning tournament, and is somebody that, whilst he might be inexperienced in this league, and whilst he might be, fairly new to this league and young, he's somebody that deserves an opportunity, or should be sold to fund bringing in a more experienced centre-back. But no, the manager just decides to go with his mate instead, even though his mate has let him down week in, week out. Not only this season, but seasons prior. Even though his mate has let the football club down year in, year out, he'd rather just go with him because he's his mate and he likes him. I feel so sorry for Michael Keane. And I don't care if you love Sean Dyche. I don't care if you're his biggest fan. I don't care if it's going to kill you to admit that he's wrong in any way, shape or form. For every mistake Michael Keane makes, the blame should be 150% focused on the manager. I don't want to hear Michael Keane's name being talked about when Everton concede a goal. I want to hear the manager's name being talked about, because it's the manager who picks him. And the manager who picks him knowing full well that he isn't good enough, that he isn't confident enough, that he makes mistakes week in, week out, that he lets us down week in, week out. So, from now on, Michael Keane makes a howler at the weekend and Everton lose 1-0. Sean Dyche has made a howler and Everton have lost 1-0. He needs to be very, very, very careful, Sean Dyche, because plenty of managers in the past have lost their jobs at Everton and at other football clubs because of their stubbornness and because of their unwillingness to change what they think they know when it isn't working. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Michael Keane, under Sean Dyche's first game of his Everton tenure against Arsenal, we won. Conor Cody played in that game, brilliant. Second game was a Merseyside derby. Okay, Conor Cody wasn't that good. Fair enough. He comes out, Michael Keane goes in. I didn't even mind Michael Keane going in on that first occasion because, ultimately the manager hadn't picked him before. He didn't know how he'd work in this system, etc., etc. He was giving him a chance. But then Michael Keane put a performance in that we know Michael Keane for. The type of performance that he's put in for years and years and years at this football club that has led him to have been, somebody that we cannot rely on, somebody that is not good enough. And instead of taking Michael Keane out when he made a mistake, like he did with Conor Cody, he kept him in for 10 games. And Everton conceded 20 goals. And he only took him out when it was abundantly clear that he needed to take him out. Bearing in mind, Jerry Mina and Conor Cody were both fit, sat on the bench for this whole time. Mina comes in, most important games of the season. We get the points we need to get, Wolves, Bournemouth, etc. And we stay up. Okay, I get it. Mina and Cody leave the football club. So why aren't we going out and buying another centre-half? If the manager has made the decision that Michael Keane isn't good enough to play for this football club week in, week out, which he did, because he took him out of the team at the most important stage of the season last season, then why all of a sudden now is he back being good enough? And why, after, a terrible performance, is he being relied on? Are we going to see Michael Keane in the starting 11 against Wolves on the weekend? Because there'll be absolute uproar if there is. And I feel like Sean Dyche will lose a lot of Evertonians at 2 o'clock. Sean Dyche could lose a lot of Evertonians. And by lose, I mean there could be a lot of Blues that turn on the manager before the ball is even being kicked on Saturday against Wolves. And you can like that or dislike it, but it's the truth. I'm not saying that Jarrad Branthwaite is the saviour, by the way, and Jarrad Branthwaite is unbelievable, and Jarrad Branthwaite should be starting week in, week out. But what I'm saying is if Jarrad Branthwaite isn't the answer, then we need to go out and bring in a centre-half that is, because we know well enough that Michael Keane certainly is not the answer. The only person that doesn't seem to know that is the manager. And that type of stubbornness and that type of unwillingness to change your ways will get you sacked. Whether it's in, October, November, December, or January, whenever it is, it will get you sacked. And Everton Football Club can't afford another season of starting the season poorly, sitting on our hands, not knowing what to do, not wanting to sack the manager, getting to January, not signing any players, sacking the manager late January, bringing a new manager in on deadline day with not enough time to bring any players in, and then struggling to stay up. We've done that for the last 2 seasons. Season before last, we had Rafa Benitez. We kept him in the job for far too long. We get to January, we sack him, we bring Frank Lampard in on deadline day. He manages to keep us up. Then into the next season, Frank Lampard proves that he very clearly isn't a good enough manager for us very early on before the World Cup in November. Some would even argue in October. But no, he's kept on until the very last minute when it is literally impossible to keep him in a job. He's sacked. We bring Dyche in days before deadline day. Can't do any business in January. We barely stay up. Are we going to do that again this season? Are we going to, leave Sean Dyche in the job until it becomes untenable, sack him, bring a new manager in with no time to do anything, and then struggle to stay up again, maybe even go down? And I'm not saying that we should sack Dyche now, and Dyche isn't good enough, and Dyche, should lose his job. But what I'm saying is we need to be very, very careful of how the season could pan out, and the manager needs to be very, very careful of the decisions that he's making, because some of the decisions that he's making simply do not make any sense whatsoever. They don't. And Sunday, from start to finish, was an absolute shit show. Within the opening 20 seconds of the game, we can see the corner. Within the opening 20 seconds of a game, and then straight after it, we can see a second corner. And you sort of just knew, for me, from that point, that this was going to be an incredibly, incredibly difficult game of football. Like I said, Everton start the afternoon. The team news comes out 1 o'clock. No surprise to see Michael Keane still in the team because of this manager and his relationship. Dominic Calvert-Lewin makes the starting 11. Great. Come through his rehab, finished his programme, as is said, and makes the starting 11. Brilliant. Hopefully he can last 70, 80 minutes, maybe even the 90 minutes, and we can get some good minutes in his legs regardless of what the result is. Everton come out, as I said, instantly. Aston Villa are on top. Not massively surprising because, this is a team that, as I said, are very, very good at home. Ended the season brilliantly, in a European position. We'll play in Europe this season. Again, a difficult team to go away to and win. However, the hope, I think, was always, right, okay, well, can we get a point? Can we go there and and pick up a point and hopefully try and come away with something so that we can sit here and we can sort of say, fair enough, got a point, move forward and go and beat Wolves. It looked for me pretty much straight away that wasn't going to happen. The minute we conceded 2 corners in the opening minute of the game, the pressure was on. Again, sort of systematically and in terms of the formation and the way in which players were set up and the way in which we were set up, it looked all off. James Garner, once again, didn't seem like he knew what he was doing on the right-hand side. The midfield, once again, were hiding. Amadou Onana wasn't getting on the ball. Idrissa Gana Guy, Abdoulaye Doucouré were not getting on the ball. And then we formulate a couple of good movements. As I said, James Garner does do well, gets it under his legs, cross the field ball to Iwobi. Iwobi then, tries to put a ball into the box. It doesn't reach it. We get another one. Ball comes in. Dom jumps up for it and clatters into Emiliano Martinez. And every time Dominic Calvert-Lewin goes down now, you just fear the worst, don't you? Every single time he goes down, whether he's holding his head, whether he's holding his leg, whether he's holding his arm, whatever he's holding, you just fear the worst because of what he and we have been through with his injury record. It simply is, it's beyond bad luck now for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's beyond bad luck. He goes down, he's down for a while. We're seeing Neil Maupay warming up on the sideline. The commentators are saying that, it's not looking good for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, etc., etc. And to be fair to Dom, he gets up and he carries on. But we all knew pretty much instantly that he wasn't going to be able to carry on for much longer. His face had ballooned like he'd had swallowed a watermelon whole, and his eye was closing over. You knew at that point that he'd fractured his cheekbone, or he'd broken his cheekbone, or he'd fractured his jaw, or he'd done something to his face in order for it to have come out in that way, and in order for it to have had that reaction in that way. And maybe that was the point, in the game where it turned, because maybe players then started to look over, realised that Dom was going to have to come off, and maybe their heads dropped and the game plan then went out the window. I don't know, but Dom goes down, fair play to him, he gets back up. He probably should have been taken off when it happened. Again, with all of the concussion rules and with all of the, the new rules to do with head injuries and stuff, I am surprised that he was allowed to continue. But he comes back on. Like I said, his face is, swollen to the max. It's pretty much, it's pretty much only a matter of time before he has to come off. And then Aston Villa, 18 minutes in, open the scoring. Leon Bailey gets down that left-hand side, our left-hand side. He puts a ball into the box. First of all, Ashley Young goes to ground far too easily. Don't know why Ashley Young's going to ground like that. Stand up, stand your man up. See him to the line and force him to make a decision. Don't go down because you've made the decision for him. The ball comes in. James Garner, for the second time in 2 weeks, has left his man to just wander, which is becoming a problem. And I like James Garner, and I think James Garner is a good player, and I think James Garner will be a good player for Everton in the future. But defensively, he needs to start waking up, because this is the second consecutive goal that Everton have conceded where he has directly been at fault. He lets his man walk. Michael Keane sees the free man in John McGinn, and instead of going over to him to stop that ball coming into John McGinn or to stop a shot, Michael Keane walks backwards to go and stand next to Jordan Pickford. And then ball comes in from Leon Bailey. John McGinn is stood with about 55 miles worth of space around him, no Everton player around him, and he rifles it into the top of the roof of the net, and there's nothing that Jordan Pickford can do. And again, Everton have gone 1-0 down, 20 minutes into a game, away from home, thanks to a ridiculously poor bit of defending. Now, I don't know how many times I have to say this, and other people have to say the same thing as well, is why do we persist on making it easy for the opposition to score? We're playing against a side that had a fantastic home record last season, and towards the back end of last season were absolutely brilliant at home. They've got a fantastic manager. They've just finished in a European position. They're a really good side. They've made some really good signings in the summer. Why do we have to make it easier for these teams to score goals? Why? I don't understand it. I really, really don't understand it. Why is James Garner allowing his man to run off him for the start? For me, James Garner simply can't play in that back line now. He has shown twice in the last week that he simply cannot sack that runner whether it be through a lack of concentration, whether it be through a lack of effort. I don't really know what it is, but he doesn't sack that runner. Why both Ashley Young and James Tarkowski go to ground is beyond me. Okay, fair enough, one of you going to ground to try and make the challenge, but both of you going to ground is ridiculous. Why Michael Keane sees John McGinn in front of him, and instead of going, do you know what, I'm going to go over to him because he's free on his own in the box, and if the ball falls to him, he's got an easy finish. Instead of doing that, he thinks, oh, fuck that, I'm not going with him, I'm going to just stand here and go and stand next to Jordan. None of it makes sense, and for a manager who prides himself on being defensively astute and prides himself on his teams, being hard to beat and hard to concede, hard to score against and brilliant defensively, we're a shambles defensively. And yes, you can put that down to the personnel. And I've seen a few people saying, well, it's not Sean Dyche's fault, it's the players' fault. Firstly, who picks the players? Secondly, Sean Dyche is picking a player we all know isn't good enough and he doesn't need to pick, but he's only picking him because he's mates with him. So, whichever way you look at it, it's the manager's fault. And again, we've conceded a goal that is just far too easy for the opposition. It's the easiest goal John McGinn will ever score in his life. The easiest goal he will ever score. The ball comes across the box and he taps it in, free, in the middle of the box with no one around him. Why is that? Because defensively, we are absolutely pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. And then, was like I said before, we simply cannot go 1-0 down. This team cannot go 1-0 down and just think, right, you know what? Don't concede a second. Keep your head. Don't make any mistakes. You're more susceptible to conceding just after you've conceded or just after you've scored. Keep your head. Let's make it simple. Let's keep it on the floor. Let's not give anything silly away. Let's get 5 or 10 minutes without conceding again, and then we can re-evaluate, replan, and go again. No. 4 minutes later, Everton give away a penalty. And even had we have not given away the penalty, we still come very close to conceding because Nathan Patterson had to clear one off the line. Even without giving away a penalty, Nathan Patterson's had to clear one off the line. He does, and the referee blows. Now, I think personally that this is soft. Now, I've seen a few people say, no, Cam, it's a blatant penalty. He makes contact. Firstly, he doesn't punch him. There's absolutely no contact with the fist. There might be a slight bit of contact with the leg. I don't know whether it's the knee or the calves or the shins clashed together. There may be a slight bit of contact there. Certainly nowhere near as much contact as what Andre Onana did when he absolutely, nearly knocked out a Wolves player last week with a WWE-style super move. But Andre Onana plays for Manchester United at Old Trafford and Jordan Pickford plays for Everton. So we all know why Andre Onana's decision wasn't given, don't we? Deep down, we all know the reasons for that. Listen, again, like I said, I think it's soft. I do. I think it's really soft. But if it was at the other end of the pitch, firstly, it wouldn't have been given because they just don't get given for Everton. But secondly, we'd be sitting here talking about it and we'd be saying it's a blatant penalty, or we'd be saying, how was it not given? So it is what it is. The penalty gets given. Again, ultimately a mistake of the goalkeeper, but generally just defensively a mistake in itself. Leon Bailey is about 4'6" and he's winning a free header in the box. It's absolutely laughable. It really, really is laughable. But ultimately, the mistake comes down to the goalkeeper. Jordan Pickford gets yellow carded for it for I think having a go at the referee. Douglas Luiz steps up and it's 2-0. Within 10 minutes, Everton are 2-0 down. Now, less than 10 minutes, 8 minutes, Everton are 2-0 down and pretty much game, set and match. Everton very rarely come back into games when we're 1-0 down, let alone 2-0 down, let alone 2-0 down away from home. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So, whether you want to call it negative, whether you want to call it pessimistic, whether you want to call it, some people's on Twitter, you only do this for clicks, you're not even a real fan, whatever you want to say, I'm not asked. At 2-0, I sat there, I didn't turn the game off, I watched the rest of the game, but I sat there and I knew there was no chance we were getting back into that game. And I would love for anybody in the comments, and I can see there's a bit of animosity in the comments at the moment, let's not argue and let's not get into personal insults and all of that sort of stuff. There's no need for that. But I would love in the comments for people to tell me that at 2-0 down on Sunday, did you have any confidence that Everton were getting back in that game, or Everton could get back in that game? Because I didn't. The players aren't good enough and the manager isn't good enough to be able to do that. It is what it is. So we go 2-0 down. And again, like I said at the start, the biggest, well, not the biggest problem, because there's so many problems with this football club at the moment, but one of the biggest problems with this football club at the moment is considering we're so bad in front of goal, and the manager knows we're so bad in front of goal, the manager knows we don't create an awful lot, the manager knows we don't score a lot of goals, etc, etc. You would think he would spend more time on making sure that A, we were better defensively in the first place and we weren't conceding stupid goals and we weren't gifting teams chances, but more so that if we do concede a goal, which anyone can on any given day, any team can concede the goal, any team can concede a worldie, any team can concede a silly goal, you would think that the manager would work with these players on the training ground to ensure that if they do concede a goal, their heads don't drop and they don't concede the second one straight away and they don't make silly mistakes straight away. They keep their cool, they keep their confidence, and they everything is simple, and they build themselves back into the game. You would think that the manager would work on that, but he doesn't. Because, once again, within 5 minutes, we're 2-0 down and the game's over. Dave, you're talking shite, mate. I have noticed that you wait for Ped to bring his videos out and then you copy their content and wear them phrases. I'll be honest, I love Baz, I love Ped, I love the boys at Toffee TV. I'm there frequently. I've been on holiday with them, they're great. I don't watch their videos because after a game of football, watching Everton, I do my video and then I don't watch anything to do with Everton, because why would I want to watch anything to do with Everton Football Club? So you're talking shite, Dave, in all, to be perfectly nice to you, you're talking out your bollocks. And anybody that watches this channel and has watched this channel for years will tell you that more often than not, my opinions are different to those of Toffee TV. I've sat here and said I wouldn't give a shit if the manager was sacked. I don't think any other fan channel has said that. And I'm not saying they haven't, and I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying, if I was copying, then that wouldn't make sense. And you said, I've heard they've kicked you off. I literally was talking to Baz last night, and we were having a full-on conversation. So what you've done there is you've put your tinfoil hat on, and you've listened to someone's auntie on Facebook, and you've talked a load of shite, Dave. So with all due respect, I'm not really in the mood to deal with a load of nonsense when I've just watched my football team get bladdered by a decent Aston Villa side. So there you go. Yeah, like I said, you would think the manager would just, ultimately would work on that with the players, but he doesn't. Clearly he doesn't. We very nearly go 3-0 down. Villa have another opportunity. Diaby has a great shot, and Jordan Pickford, makes a fantastic save. I'm not gonna say he makes up for the penalty, because that maybe would be a little bit complimentary to Jordan, but he ultimately he makes a good save, and he keeps the game at a reasonably. It's difficult, because any other team at 2-0 down would think we can get back in this game, get one goal early on in the second half, we can get back in this game. I just don't think like that with Everton, because it just doesn't happen. It's never the case. But he kept it at a reasonably achievable scoreline, with a fantastic save. Everton then do make the substitution. Danjuma comes on for Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin at this point is seemingly very, 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 very upset about coming off. The Blues makes a great point. I think it was, mate. I think it was uploaded first. Not because just because obviously I recorded it before there. So yeah, quite funny that, isn't it, mate? Quite ironic. Yeah, like I said, Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes off. Needed to come off. His face was, as I said earlier, the size of a watermelon. His eye was pretty much closed over. And he was booed off by some Evertonians in that away end on Sunday. And look, for me, listen, there's absolutely no doubting that we are all beyond frustrated with Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injury record. We are all devastated. We are all upset. We are all, emotions are heightened and frustration is heightened, etc., etc. There's absolutely no doubt in that. I am the same. When I seen the collision and I knew he had to come off, I was frustrated myself. But there will not be a single human being on this planet that is as frustrated with what is going on with Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the moment than Dominic Calvert-Lewin is. Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be more frustrated with his injuries and with the injury he sustained at the weekend than any of us. Because this nonsense, weird sort of conspiracy of that he doesn't want to play footy and he hates playing footy and he hates Everton and he doesn't want to be there is obviously a load of bollocks. Because if that was the case, he would have retired, wouldn't he? He would have had his injury, he would have retired, and he'd have said, oh, I'm retiring because my body can't do it anymore, blah, 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 I'm going to go and pursue something else. But he hasn't. He's worked tirelessly, day in, day out, every single time he's had an injury to come back from that injury. And even when he's come back and then he's been re-injured and he's been out for another 6 months or whatever it might be, he's worked tirelessly again to come back from that injury. And let me just remind everybody that the injury Dominic Calvert-Lewin sustained on Sunday was not a muscle injury. It wasn't a re-injure of something he'd hurt previously. It wasn't, a hamstring strain or a calf strain. He was smacked in the face and he'd broken his jawline. Now, for everybody sat at home saying, well, get on with it. I would implore you to go into the street, run into a lamppost. I wouldn't implore you because I wouldn't, I'm not advocating this, but imagine you went out in the street, you ran into a lamppost, you broke your cheekbone. Would you get up and go, do you know what, I'm going to go to work today? I know some people have to. I know some people haven't got a choice. I know some people have got jobs where they must do that. But my point is it's not a very nice injury. It's not something that we'd have seen coming. It's a freak injury. And there's no way he could have continued playing football. No way. His eye was shut and his face was like that. If he was a boxer, it would have been stopped. And boxing is a sport where you are hit in the face. And you have to withstand being hit in the face. So, the boos and the stuff from the crowd, I don't agree with. I understand everyone's frustrated. I understand everyone's annoyed. I understand everyone's emotions are heightened. But ultimately, I think there will have been a lot of people that will have got on that coach or got in their cars on the way home, actually looked at the injury and seen the pictures and probably thought, oh, actually, you know what? That's not great, that. And as frustrating as it is, all we can do is wish Dom a very speedy recovery and hope that he makes, as I said, hope that he's back and he's ready to go as soon as possible because we need him. We really, really do need him. But one thing's for sure is he won't be ready for this weekend. Therefore, we ultimately need to go out within the next 5 days and bring in a centre forward. Or I don't see the point in Kevin Thirlwell. I really don't. If Kevin Thirlwell hasn't signed a centre forward by Friday at 12 o'clock, again, I'd have no interest if he left the football club. Simple as that. So yeah, Dom goes off, and again at that point you're 2-0 down. You maybe should be 3-0 down. Your centre forward's gone off. Danjuma's come on. Danjuma was lively. I thought he was impressive. He had one moment in the first half just before where he got he got one-on-one with the goalkeeper and he puts a shot across the box, and the goalkeeper makes a save. Again, good save by Martinez, good move by Danjuma, good little bit of play, and then it's half time. 2-0 down, half time. Again, typically, you might look and go, well, do you know what? Maybe we could get back into this game. Maybe if we get a goal early on in the second half, we can get back into this. But I don't know about you, and as I said, this is an interactive live show, so I really want to hear what you all think. But there wasn't one part of me that at half-time sat there and said, we can get back into this game. Not one part of me. I was convinced that game was done and dusted and over the second the penalty went in. And that just shows you how bad of a position we are in as a football club at the moment and how desperate we are to A, recruit players to make us better, and B, as I said, for the manager to be better himself. The manager has to take responsibility. He said at half-time, he said after the game, at half-time, I could have changed every single player, but he made one sub. He brought Lewis Dobbin on for, just a guy. And I'm not saying he should have made 4 subs, but don't come out and say at half-time I could have changed the whole team and then make one sub, because it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, we were truly, truly terrible in that first half. We really, really were. We were terrible in that first half. Aston Villa were a much better team, and the scoreline probably flattered Everton a little bit with it being 2-0. It made it seem like, especially with one of the goals being a penalty, it made it seem like maybe it was a closer game than it was. It wasn't. Aston Villa were much the better team, much the more dominant team. Everton had one shot at goal, I think, and that was about it. And Villa were could have been 3 or 4-0 up. We come out for the second half. As I said, he makes one sub. 5 minutes later, he makes another sub. Don't know why you wouldn't have just made that sub earlier on, but that sub 5 minutes later was forced through Alex Iwobi pulling up with a hamstring injury. What seems like a hamstring injury. As I said, we haven't had any actual update or actual news regarding the injury since it. It looked poor, as in it looked like it was a bad one. It's never good when a professional footballer pulls up and and this Baz Baziv has come back as a different account to Dave. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. It's never a good look when a footballer pulls up holding their hamstring, especially when there's been no impact or no contact or nothing like that. Iwobi did. He goes off. He's replaced by Neil Maupay. And again, could things get any worse for Everton? We're 2-0 down. Away from home, we've lost our goal scorer. We've lost our most creative player, whether you like him or not. He's our most creative player. We've lost him, and we've replaced our goal scorer with a player that has proven time and time again isn't good enough to play in the Premier League. Things do then get worse. A minute later, Leon Bailey makes it 3. I don't even know how to explain this one. Long throw taken into the box, and Bailey slams the half volley through Jordan Pickford's legs. Once again, defensively, everybody is standing around. Defensively, we're waiting. We're reacting, to the goal as opposed to reacting to, oh shit, there's a player stood on his own in the box there. Maybe I'll go over and do something about that. No. Defence stood around, whether it be Tarkowski, who was the captain, whether it be Michael Keane, whether it be James Garner. Midfield at this point may as well have been sat next to me on the couch watching it. Absolutely pointless. Amadou Onana, dreadful. Just a Ghana guy who went off at half time, dreadful. Abdoulaye Doucouré, dreadful. James Garner, dreadful. On the ball, okay, but off the ball, dreadful. And like I said, Leon Bailey into the onto the end of the long throw in, completely left on his own. Once again, pretty much a mirror image of the first goal. The first goal, we allowed John McGinn to be stood on his own in the box with nobody around him. This one, Leon Bailey stood in the box, nobody around him. 3-0 down, it's game over. It's pretty much a case of, let's just get over this next half an hour and get out of here because this is terrible. Not that long later, we have a throw-in this time. Okay, what could go wrong? We've got a throw-in. We've conceded from a throw-in, but it was their throw-in. What can go wrong here? Ashley Young, who was terrible, absolutely terrible all afternoon, throws it to Michael Keane. Michael Keane isn't aware that the ball is coming to him because he's asleep and he's never on his toes and he's never ready for the pass. Misses it. The Aston Villa forward, I can't remember his name, Jordan I think it is, runs onto the end of it, one-on-one with Jordan Pickford and puts it away for 4-0, and that's it. Game, set and match. Aston Villa make a couple of changes and Everton have lost their second consecutive Premier League game in truly, truly disgraceful style. Not just losing a game of football. Aston Villa, as I said at the start, are a good team. There'll be a lot of teams that lose at Villa Park this year. There'll be a lot of teams that are beaten at Villa Park this year heavily. But the way in which we lost, the manner in which we lost, is just absolutely pitiful. And I don't care if the manager should be given a chance. I don't care if the manager deserves to be given a chance because he kept us up. If the manager keeps making the same mistakes week in, week out and not learning from them, then sooner or later he is going to be sacked. And it's been the same with the last two managers, and it was later, and it was nearly too late. So we can't afford to make that mistake again. Sean Dyche has to change. If he wants to keep his job, he has to change. The players have to do more. As I said, players like Amadou Onana, pointless performance. Was nowhere near as involved as he should have been. And again, I just want to point out something. Again, same conversation we had last week. We talked after the Fulham game about, Neil Maupay being abused after the game. Amadou Onana, racially abused on Instagram after the game. Why? What's the need? What's the need? It's a game of football. We can all sit here and have an opinion. I can sit here and say he was poor, he wasn't involved enough, he wasn't good enough. But abusing players, never mind racially abusing players, is disgusting. And I hope that individual is never allowed to step foot inside the Goodison or any other football stadium ever again, because it truly is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. These are human beings at the end of the day. Have your criticisms and have your opinions, of course, but abusing players and then racial abuse is just vile. We're seeing this far too much now. With obviously Neil Maupay, seeing it with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, seeing it with Amadou Onana. It's happening far too often, and it is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And it's again, obviously thoughts go out to Amma at this time. Ultimately he wasn't very good the other day, and he didn't have a great game of football, but that doesn't mean he should be abused. It's vile. So thoughts and prayers obviously go out with him at this time. But full time whistle goes, and we've lost another game. And like I said, we can sit here all we like and say it's only 2 games in, no need to stress, no need to worry, etc, etc. Some of the decisions that are being made, some of the performances, some of the mistakes, some of the lack of business being done in the transfer window in the areas we needed to be done is worrying. Again, whether you want to be worried or not, because we're in August, I'm worried, because I know we'll all be worried come May. So, as I said, the director of football needs to book his ideas up this week. The manager needs to book his ideas up this week. And the players need to book their ideas up as well. Because whether you like it or not, whether you want to laugh, whether you think this is the case or not, next Saturday is a must-win game. It's as simple as that. There you go. We're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. We did surpass 8,000 subscribers over the weekend, so big thank you all for that. Really appreciate it. We are, of course, aiming towards the 10,000 subscriber mark, so massive thank you to everybody for hitting that subscribe button. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. If you have enjoyed this one, please leave a like. Once again, massive thanks to everybody for all of the support on the instant match reaction and the player ratings at the weekend. They did really well, and for somebody who just copies other fan channels, I really appreciate that. But yeah, big thank you all for watching. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. We'll obviously be back this week with more content surrounding transfers and news, so don't forget to look out for them. But big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon.